As we all know, after losing the Horus Heresy, the traitor legions had to flee into the Eye of Terror, and ever since have been making do with whatever equipment they have to hand, and well, doing their best to keep hold of everything they already have, which means a lot of their equipment is incredibly ancient, such as their battle tanks, such as this one right here, a Demios pattern Predator. Now we all think to ourselves, what would happen to one of these if they were still using it 10,000 years later, and well, if it was the Death Guard in particular who were using it, and during that time, a demon had decided to make residence within it. So in this video, we're going to find out by having a lot of fun converting this tank into a Demon Possessed Predator for use in Warhammer 40k. Assembly of the Predator starts out by putting together the units that go on either side of the hull that house the tracks and also from which the sponsons are hung. And so we're going to be starting there too, and it all revolves around two parts on either side, and this is the two. You can see we've got the outer part and the inner part. Now before gluing these together, I thought it'd be really cool to actually do a bit of work on these to have some tentacles and things erupting out of the vents that we've got. And to do this, it's best set up before we actually start sticking anything together. What I'm going to do is literally go in at the back of them with some clippers and start to split them open. So I've got my clippers just here. What I'm going to do is just get them wedged in amongst some of these little vent openings, like there, like that, and then just snip through and just twist it a bit so it cuts through, just there, like that. So we get a bit of random damage happening there. Now you can also do a bit on the outside. You can even cut into some of the hull if you wanted to, just to cause a little bit of damage on there, just there, like that. But once you're happy with it, to open this up, what we're going to do is just get a paintbrush, use the back of it, and use this to start pressing it outwards. And in the process of doing this, some of the plastic is going to break on these vents, but that's absolutely fine. Really, it's just a matter of creating this sort of split open appearance there, like that. I finished doing that in all four of those vents, and in some cases I even cut into the surrounding plastic, such as just there, because I think when it comes time to painting it, that distressed metal there is going to look really cool with some weathering on it. But with that done, we now need to add some tentacles to these, and to do this, what I've done is got hold of a box of Chaos Spawn, so this set right here. Now if you're doing Chaos conversions, this set's really useful because it's got loads of interesting bits and pieces like tentacles, claws, eyeballs, all that sort of thing, and it's from there that I've got a tentacle. The one I'm using is this one right here. Now all we need to do with this is thread it through these holes that we've cut in here. So this one, for example, it's just a matter of poking it through the back there like that and just pushing it through until it goes into a position that looks good. And I think having it going kind of like that is going to look really cool. So what I need to do is glue that onto the back of the hull. So all I'm going to do is get a little bit of super glue, just dot it in place where the tentacle can glue onto the back of it. So just there, and then it's just a matter of moving the tentacle so it just moves into that glue and then starts to set. Now once that's dry, this is going to have to be cut down on the back just here to make sure the hull can fit together. So I'm just going to let that set and then clip that away with my clippers. The glue is dry, giving us that tentacle poking out there through that hole, and you can see it's nicely secured at the back where I have trimmed it down to make sure that everything's going to fit together. But we've now got quite a void here, which you see from the front, it's really open. So what we want to do is give the impression there's some sort of fleshy mass behind that. So to do that, I'm going to be using some green stuff. Now if you've not used green stuff before, it's basically a modelling putty that comes in a blue and yellow side. I've got some just down here. What you do is just cut some of this off and then mash it together so it turns into an even green, and then over the next few hours, like 4 hours or so, it solidifies. So it's great for sculpting. And what we need to do to use this is just cut some off to begin with. For this, I'm going to be using a sculpting tool. So I've got this one just here. What you need to do is just slice off as much as you think you're going to need. So in this case, I think that's going to be good. So it's just a matter of cutting through there like that until we get our piece removed. So there we go, and there. And it's worth noting that where the two colours are touching at the moment, there is going to be a thin strip of dried green stuff. So we need to make sure we remove that. So what I'm going to do is just cut that away by just slicing through there, and then slicing through here, and there we go. That piece is then going to be waste. So we now got our two sides, and you can see I've got slightly more yellow. I tend to favour having a bit more yellow than blue because I find it makes it a little bit more pliable. Basically what you do is just start mashing them together and keep mixing until you get to an even green. Here we have the result of mixing the green stuff, and I've split it down just to how much I think I'm going to need for this particular vent so we can now apply it. And to do this, what you'll find is that the green stuff actually becomes a little bit sticky, and sometimes it can end up sticking to your fingers rather than the model. So a great way of avoiding that is just to use a bit of E45 cream. So with this, all you need to do is just get a small amount onto your finger, so just a little bit will do, you don't need very much. And then if you just put this around, this will just prevent it from sticking to you. So with that done, we can now get this into position, and all you need is to get your green stuff, then get your vehicle, and all I'm going to do is just flatten flatten it out ever so slightly, and then start pressing it onto the back of where that's going to go. So just there around that vent, just to make sure to gently cover it up. But you can see at the front there, it starts to appear on the back and gives the impression that we've got some flesh behind that vent. So what I'm going to do is carry on doing this on a few more of these vents just to really build them up to this point. This has been a lot of fun. You can see we've got the tentacle going through there and there's that fleshy mass behind it. But also I realised on the Chaos Spawn sprue, there's also giant fly or giant spider legs. I don't know which one's worse, but you can see they look particularly gross and Nurgle poking through there. And just like before, I've used green stuff to make sure they're all mashed down there on the back so everything is nice and secure. On the other side, I've put a tentacle as well. And this one has an eyeball on the end of it, which I've made sure is looking towards the front of the tank. So I think that's particularly gross. And for this one, I thought I'd do something a little bit different. And that's to give the impression there's flesh behind it, but there's all pustules and things on it. Now to do this, what I'm going to be using are some half beads, which I bought off Amazon. Basically come in a little pack like this, nice and cheap and easy to get hold of. But because they're just like a half round shape, they're actually ideal for doing pustules and things. So really, really useful if you're doing Death Guard and Nurgle. And what I'm going to do is get some green stuff, which I have just spread it out to make sure it's roughly the size of that vent for when it goes on the back just there, you see. So it's going to cover that area there. And what we're going to do is just put some of those beads into that green stuff surface. Now this is a little bit fiddly, so you definitely want to make sure you get some tweezers for this. But basically what you do is just select the size you're going to use, such as in this one, for example, get your tweezers, and then it's just a matter of picking one up, if you can grab one, and then putting it down into the green stuff surface and just pushing it into position. So I'm just going to do this now with a few of these beads of different sizes. Now those beads are stuck into the green stuff, it's just a matter of putting it onto the assembly of the tank. So here comes another fiddly part, but it's just a matter of lining it up so these are loosely going through those holes, and then again just pressing it down into position. And here we have the result. Now painting that is going to be loads of fun when it comes time to painting the model, but with that done, we've now basically finished that stage where we're putting stuff on the inside of the track assemblies. So with that done, we can start putting them together. So now I'm going to carry on building the tank as normal by building those track areas, then moving into the centre parts of the hull. When we come back, we'll do some more Nurgle stuff to it. So I've been gluing the model together and I'm actually quite surprised because I've reached a part where some of the parts simply don't fit together. So I thought I'd better show you what I'm encountering here in case you get the same issue on your kit and you can see how I'm rectifying it. Essentially the problem comes about when you get this bottom plate that goes underneath the hull and it fits into the track assemblies just in there. And the bottom plate basically is just too thick. It doesn't fit into the gap just there. So I've been having to modify it to get it closer. It's still not quite perfect. There's still a bit of a gap at the back just there, but it is on the way. The way I've been rectifying this is to use a file just to file down this area just here. And you can see I'm really having to go at it to get that much thinner because it is just too thick right now. On the other side, I have been using some clippers to cut that away and it looks a bit messy, but that all will get hidden once it is glued together. And it is on the right path. You can see if I put them together, it is getting quite close, but I'm still having to really push it to make it go in there. So I'm just going to file a little bit more. When you're building the model, if you encounter this issue, well, this is a way of rectifying it when you do get through it. After finally getting that central base plate to fit, everything else has gone together pretty well. And at this stage, I think things are looking a bit too clean, so it's high time that we did a bit more Nurgle stuff to the tank. And the first of those is going to be on the back of it, because we do have the hatch here. Now, I haven't actually glued it shut yet. I am going to, but I think what we should do is have some of this peeling back and some more tentacles start to come out the back of the hole just there. And having it still movable is going to make that much easier. So what we need to do is attack that plate, essentially, to be able to weaken it so we can start to bend part of it back. Now, this is going to be a bit rough and ready in doing this, but I'm basically going to use my clippers to start to distress some of the plastic on the back. So what I'm going to do is open up the hatch, and we're looking at, well, around this part just here. I'm just going to start clipping it to weaken the plastic in this area. So just a bit on that side. I'm being careful not to go too far at once so that I don't risk damaging the clippers. But by doing this, what I'm doing is just starting to distress it, meaning that we can start to bend it back. So I think I'm going to have to do a bit more clipping, but you can see the general idea is going to allow us to start to bend this bit around here. With a bit more chopping and clipping and then some bending, you can see the result. I've really gone quite heavy on the inside just there, and I've allowed the clippers also to damage some of the outer surface too, to look like a little bit of corrosion and things. And so what we can now do is glue that shut. So to do this, again, I'm just going to use a little bit of super glue. And we don't need very much for this, just a bit along where the two parts are going to come together. And then it's a matter of just pressing it shut there like that. And so once that's dry, it's then going to be time to add some tentacles, which I'm just going to be threading in and gluing on the back of the door just down there. With that gap filled with tentacles, it's then just a matter of getting some green stuff, which I've mixed up here, and we just need to put it on the back like we did on the track areas earlier on. And in this case, what we can do is access by the inside of the turret ring just there. Again, it's just a matter of putting the green stuff behind and pushing it into place to fill in any gaps. And with that, that disgusting mass is done, so we can turn our attention to the front of the tank because it's time to put on that front hull plate. And this has the vision port on it, which is quite an open space, so obviously we've got to do something disgusting there. So this is the piece, and you see we've got this big open gap, and to do this, I've set up some green stuff with the half beads on, just like we did on the side of the hull earlier on. And this is simply just going to go on the inside to give the impression of tons of eyes, or boils, or God knows what. But once that's fixed in there, we can carry on building the tank. I'm just going to resume building it by putting on the exhausts, the sponsons, and then moving on to the turret. With some more parts glued together, the central hull is now complete, and I've also made up the sponsons. Now, speaking of the sponsons, when it comes to these, if like me you're planning on using the tank in 40k instead of the Horus Heresy, just make sure you pick weapons that can be used in 40k. So in this case, I've gone for heavy bolters there on the sponsons. As for the turret, I'm going to be going for the Predator autocannon, so making the full Predator destructor variant here. Now, speaking of the turret, that's what we're going to work on next, and it starts out with this top shell. And before we glue it to anything, I am going to be doing a bit of work to it. Now, I have glued this little piece that goes on the side, but when it comes to the hatch, this is another great opportunity for a tentacle to be emerging out of it. So something like this one curling around just there. But because the hatch that goes on top of it is quite a solid flat fit, it means we're going to have to do some work on it. So this is going to be a little bit like the back hatch that we did on the Predator's hull. Basically, we need to cut into this with some clippers and then start bending it open. So we're going to do that now. So I've got my clippers here, and just like with that hatch, it's just a matter of basically working away at this gradually, just clipping away parts so we can start to weaken the plastic, and then once it's ready, we can start to bend that upwards. So I'm just going to start working away like this, just gradually just cutting into there, and then when we're ready, we can start lifting part of it up. After some clipping and a bit of ripping as well, this is the result. Now, it did get a bit weak at the very top there, so I have put some glue to help hold it in place, but this is ideal for what we want because this still drops nicely into place on top of the turret right there, and we now have that gap for the tentacle. Now, after looking at the bits on the Chaos Spawn sprue, I think this one's actually going to be quite cool. It's got sort of a horrible kind of claw on the end of it, so that one's going to go in there, but there's also going to be room to get the tentacle in too, so I'm planning on putting that in there as well, just inside there. With that glued in place, we have the result of the Daemon attempting to break out of the tank just there. And so just like before with these other bits coming through, what we need is some green stuff, and it's a matter of then just putting it on the inside and just very gently pushing it through to fill in any gaps. And now that the turret is fully built, the main assembly of the model is finished, complete with lots of really gross, horrible things trying to crawl out of it, so ideal for a Daemon Possessed tank. But we're not quite finished with it yet. The next thing that I want to do is add on some of the Chaos Tank accessories, and this is from a sprue that you get in loads and loads of Chaos vehicles. It is this one right here, and if you are collecting Chaos Space Marines, you're going to get one of these sooner or later. It's really useful. It's full of tons of bits that you can use on all kinds of things, such as a really cool bulldozer ram to go on the front. You got these spikes and circles, which really fit nicely around turrets and things. You've got various crew details. There's also gargoyle heads that can go on weapons. There's a Havoc missile launcher, loads and loads of cool stuff, and of course there are some Chaos icons, including this icon of Nurgle, which is definitely going to be going on the tank. So what I'm going to do is clip some of these off and glue them onto the main tank, and then after that what we'll need to do is figure out some way to chain the Daemon into the vehicle. I finished gluing on the accessories now, starting out with that circular spike structure there, which I put around the cupola. Then down towards the front of the tank, I added, of course, the mark of Nurgle right there, and then I did the ram on the front. When I was sticking on the ram, it kind of made me think of a mouth, and so I thought to myself, what else does a Daemon spider tank need other than mandibles as well? So that's what I've got glued on here. These are just taken from the Chaos Spawn kit. They're basically legs, which I just cut down and glued straight on the front, and later on when we do some green stuffing, we can just blend them into the hull as if the Daemons willed them into being around the front. With that done, what we now need to do is, well, work out a way to chain the Daemon inside the tank, and for that I'm going to be using some jewelry chain. So this is what I've got just here. I got this off Amazon. It is 1mm link, so it's actually very, very small here and quite fiddly, so there is a particular way I like to apply this. But it's ideal for what we need, and if you are collecting Chaos, it's definitely worth getting some of this because it's so useful on scenery, vehicles, all sorts of things. So the way to use this is to start out by getting a little bit of glue on the ends of some of the links. Then we need to gently just put these into position where they're going to be fixed to the hull. Then it's a matter of just gently laying them down across where they're going to go, and with some clippers, then just trim them down to the right sort of size for what we need. With that done, to glue them in place, what we'll need to do is get a paper clip and just run some glue on the end of it, And very gently with this, we just need to touch some glue to connect the chains to the tank. And here we have the result with that chain there stretched across the hatch, but I don't think one's going to be quite enough to hold the Daemon in there. So for each one, I want to put a second one on to create sort of like a cross-like shape. So now what I'm going to be doing is the exact same thing, but just looking to go across it kind of in this direction just here. Here's the second chain glued on the top there, and sometimes you are going to find yourself left in a position where there's nowhere to hide the end of the chain. It's sort of left in the open like it is just there. And in these cases, what we should do is just something on there as if the chain's attached to it, just as though it's got some sort of weight or something to pin it in. In this case, what I'm going to do is make the impression of a nail, and to do it, I'm going to be using some plasticard. Now, the rod I've got here is 1mm in diameter, and if you look closely, you can see I've just sharpened the end there like a pencil into a point. And the idea is to thread this into the links. So what we need to do is put a little bit of super glue on here. Don't need very much, just a little bit on the very end there like that, and then get hold of the turret, and what we need to do is very carefully just thread this into the last link on the chain. So we're looking at just down here, just want to poke it through and then hold it in place until it sticks to the hull of the tank. Now once that's glued in place, all you need to do is just clip on the end to shorten it right down. And here we have the result, putting the chains there over the hatches. Now that stage is fiddly, but it does look really cool, so it's definitely worth taking the time to do that. But with that done, the next thing we're going to add is some pustules emerging out from the hull of the tank, and for this, I'm going to go back to those half beads. And to do it, what we need to do is super glue them onto the tank's hull. Now again, this is going to be a little bit fiddly, so you have to take your time with it. The first thing to do is to resort back to using a paperclip once again, because with this paperclip, what we can do is get just a little bit of glue on it. So very carefully, just a bit on the end right there, and then it's a matter of picking an area on the tank where you want the glue to go. So in this case, I'm looking at this region on the hull just here. So I'm just going to apply a bit of it there like that. And then just need to grab some of the beads. Now for this, I'm going to be using tweezers, going for this size just here. Basically what you got to do is, well, struggle to pick one up. You see why it's so fiddly. Then get it into place and use the tweezers just to move it into position on the glue. Now once you've got that on there, it's time to add some more, and really it's entirely up to you exactly how many you apply onto the hull. With the beads on, you can see they're forming a good basis for the pustules there on the tank. I've got a bunch on the front, and I've also got some there on the back. And so what we're going to do now is blend them in, and to do this, I'm going to be using some liquid green stuff. Now, if you've not used liquid green stuff before, it basically is like a super thick green paint. And here it is from Games Workshop. You can see just how thick it is when I open it up. And basically what we do is paint this on and use it to blend these pustules into the surrounding hull. Now, to apply it, what you want is a rough older brush, and I've got a medium base coat brush here. It is water-based, so afterwards you can wash your brush, but what you do is get a good scoop of it there like that, and then look for where you want to use it to blend things in, such as on these pustules just here, and basically just apply it over the top and just start painting it around. And what it will do is fill in any recesses, any gaps or anything like that, and help smooth it into its surroundings. So basically just really cake it on there like that and smooth it out like you would a paint. Now once you're happy with it, it's then just a matter of letting it dry, and this does take a bit of time to dry, so I do recommend leaving it for around about an hour before you move on to the next stage. And here you can see how that liquid green stuff has really helped blend them in. Now I did just wipe the top of each of these little beads that we've got here just to make them nice and smooth, so when it comes time to painting them we can make them look extra gross as if they're full of pus or something like that. But the green stuff is nice and easy just to help blend them in there. Now we're going to do a little bit more with the liquid green stuff because we can do the appearance of like some sort of demonic skin starting to come through the hull and merging with it by basically just roughing up the surfaces and letting it build up in some of the recesses. And to do this, we need to start out by just applying it onto the vehicle. Now to do this, I'm going to be using my rough base coat brush once again. So back to this one here from Citadel. It's just a matter of getting some of this and then painting it onto a random area where you want this textured surface to be. So for example, on top of the hull, we could do some just around here. And what you do is just start out by just painting some of it on, just like a regular paint really. Just let it build up into areas like that. You can drop it into some of the recessed parts there, such as in there. Again, just let a nice large amount just drop down into there like that. And once you've applied a random amount, sort of like that, the thing to do is then switch over to a dry brush. Now the one I'm going to be using here is a small dry brush from Citadel, and what we need to do is just get it damp first of all. So just get a little bit of water on the bristles there like that, and then just work it into the brush. You don't want it to be soaking or anything, but just a little bit wet so the paint doesn't stick too much to it. And with that ready, all we need to do then is just start stippling on the liquid green stuff. So on this area here, for example, just go straight at it with the brush, just start dotting it, and what it will do is just merge it down into the hull and leave a rough texture behind. So just there like that. Now this again will take a bit of time to dry, so once you're happy with it, leave it for about an hour. But once it's done, the conversion is complete. And here we have the completed Death Guard Predator Destructor, possessed by a demon of Nurgle and ready to be unleashed upon the servants of the False Emperor. So doing this is really fun, and if you've never tried converting a vehicle or something like a possessed vehicle for your army, I definitely recommend you give it a go, because the result is a vehicle that is totally unique to you and will really stand out in your force and make it much more personal to you as well. Now doing this, as you've seen, has lots of parts to really think about, especially if you're going to have bits emerging from the inside the vehicle, because you will need to do this as you're building the model. But also bear in mind with this specific kit, and indeed all the other models that use this kind of rhino as a basis, you want to make sure that you're careful with that bottom plate, because it is a devil to get it to fit. So just remember to gradually carve it away and file it away until it does fit together. But I do encourage you to give it a go, have fun, and we'll see you again very soon.